What if I told you that a single coin, smaller than a poker chip, could be worth more than a brand new luxury car, or even your house? Today, we're diving into 10 of the most jaw-dropping, high-value presidential coins ever struck in U.S. history. These aren't your average pocket change, they're rare pieces of American legacy, some of them quietly sitting in old drawers, forgotten. Until now, some of these coins have sold for over $500,000, and you'll want to stick around to see the one that might be hiding in plain sight. Subscribe now, because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. First up, we have a coin that looks simple, worn, maybe even ordinary at first glance. But don't blink, because this 1849 to 1850 presidential piece has a story that stretches deep into the heart of American history, and a value that's going to leave you stunned. This coin commemorates the presidency of Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, a war hero turned leader, whose time in office was cut tragically short. He died just 16 months into his presidency. That alone makes coins from his era especially rare, and collectors, well, they go wild for that kind of history. Now, it's talk condition because the one we're looking at, it's circulated, it's been in pockets, it's felt the grit of daily life. Worn edges, soft features yet still clearly marked with the profile of Taylor, his military uniform proudly displayed, with the words Zachary Taylor etched around the rim. You might think that wear knocks its value down, but here's the kicker, it actually makes it more mysterious, more storied, and for the right collector, more desirable. But here's where things take a wild turn. In circulated condition, this coin can already fetch $3,000 to $10,000 depending on clarity and strike. That's pretty decent. But this is a big if, it happens to be one of the first strikes from a lesser-known mint, or has a rare die error, and yes, several are known to exist, the value skyrockets. We're talking auction prices, north of $150,000, even for visibly worn examples, and some uncirculated versions with crisp edges and untouched surfaces. They've gone as high as $430,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin barely 2 centuries old. Now, what could drive that kind of value? It's partly about scarcity. See, during the mid-1800s, the U.S. mint was still expanding, and not all mints produce the same volume or quality. Some versions of this coin have an incredibly low mintage, and others were struck with imperfect dies, tiny errors that escaped the eyes of mint workers. But today, they're golden to collectors. Imagine this. A tiny break in the die causes a faint double image on Taylor's uniform, or a date slightly misaligned. These micro errors, almost invisible to the naked eye, can multiply the coin's value by tenfold. And just like that, what once jingled inside someone's pocket in the mid-1800s could now be someone's retirement fund. But here's the chilling part. Most people wouldn't even recognize it if they saw it. They might throw it in a jar, or worse, spend it. That's the thrill and the tragedy of a coin like this. A real piece of history, possibly sitting in plain sight, hiding a value that could change someone's life. And guess what? That was just the beginning. Next up, we're stepping into presidential coin territory with a twist, one that involves a minting mistake so subtle it took experts years to spot. But once they did, the price tag exploded. Make sure you're subscribed, because this next one might just blow your mind. Next up, a coin that carries the weight of a nation on the edge of collapse. This 1857 to 1861 presidential coin features James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States, and the last president before the Civil War tore the country in two. At first glance, this circulated coin looks like it's been through a lot, and that's because it has smoothed edges, faded detailing, a soft patina earned from more than 160 years of movement through time. You can feel the era in its metal, and when it comes to Buchanan, the history is as complex as it gets. Now, here's what makes this coin fascinating. Unlike some presidents whose coins were mass-produced in flashy commemorative runs, Buchanan's coins were minted in limited quantities, especially during the turbulent final years of his presidency. Political unrest, minting shortages, and public mistrust in currency created a perfect storm. And that meant fewer coins, more inconsistencies, and wild variations in design and die strikes. And collectors? They chase those variations like treasure. In circulated condition, a standard Buchanan piece might sell for $4,000 to $8,000. Not bad. But if your coin is one of the known Philadelphia Mint first strikes, or includes the notorious ghost date error where the last digit in the date appears faint or partially missing due to a worn die, you're sitting on something that could be worth $60,000 to $100,000, even in a worn state. But here's where things get absolutely crazy. One rare error version, minted with an inverted reverse die, showed Buchanan's image facing the wrong way compared to the inscription. It was such a subtle error, barely noticeable, until it was discovered in the 1990s. One of those rare misstrikes, still in circulated but preserved condition, sold at auction for an eye-watering $280,000. And then came the shocker. In 2016, an uncirculated Buchanan coin with a pristine die clash where parts of the reverse design imprinted faintly onto the front came up at auction. It was certified by PCGs as a unique mint state error. Bidding exploded. And the final sale? $540,000. $500,000. For a coin smaller than a silver dollar, bearing the face of a president often overlooked in the history books. Now imagine this. An elderly collector passes away, and among their belongings, tucked into a dusty binder, is a Buchanan coin with slight irregularities. The family nearly throws it out, but one grandchild decides to check. Boom. Life changed. And here's the kicker. There are still dozens unaccounted for. Experts believe many of these coins were lost, melted down, or tossed aside due to the political tensions of the time. That means finding one today is like digging up a piece of gold buried beneath the Civil War. If you're holding onto a presidential coin from this era, especially with any unusual details, faint lettering, or die misalignments, do not ignore it, because you might just be holding six figures in the palm of your hand. 2 coins in, and we're already knocking on the door of $500,000, and we've barely scratched the surface. So if this blew your mind even a little, pause and hit that subscribe button. You're not going to want to miss what's coming next. Moving on, the next coin takes us into one of the most iconic moments in U.S. history, and believe it or not, one version of it was accidentally stamped with the wrong year, and it's now one of the most valuable presidential coins ever discovered. You'll want to stay for this one. Moving on, we leap into the year 2000, a year most of us remember. Y2K panic, flip phones, the dawn of the new millennium. But what you probably didn't know is that one coin from that year, a coin struck at the Denver Mint, would go on to become one of the most bizarre and valuable error coins in modern U.S. history. And the one you're looking at right now? It's not in great shape. It's scuffed, dull, and heavily circulated. Honestly, it looks like it's been through the wash, maybe even run over. But don't let its condition fool you, because this coin holds a secret. It's part of one of the most famous modern minting mistakes ever recorded, the legendary 2000D Sacagawea dollar Washington quarter mule. Now here's the unbelievable part. In the year 2000, at the Denver Mint, a handful of coins were mistakenly struck using a Sacagawea dollar reverse die, paired with a Washington state quarter obverse. That should have been impossible. 2 totally different coins, 2 different denominations. And yet, the Mint somehow fed the wrong die into the press. The result? A Frankenstein hybrid, the front of a quarter, the back of a dollar, and collectors lost their minds. Only 19 of these coins are confirmed to exist. 19 across the entire country. And here's where things hit a whole new level. Even in terrible condition, I'm talking scratched, scuffed, worn down to the bone, one of these mule coins sold for $120,000. That's in bad shape. Another one, barely better, hit $198,000. But the record? A near mint specimen, verified and certified, $352,500 at public auction. Now, that sink in. Over $350,000 for a modern coin that could still be mistaken for pocket change. And here's the terrifying part. Most people who had them never even knew. These Coins entered circulation for a short time before the error was discovered. Some were spent at gas stations. Some were thrown in coin jars. Some are still out there. So here's what to look for. Flip the coin. If the front looks like a standard Washington quarter, but the back has the golden eagle reverse of the Sacagawea dollar, you just hit the jackpot. Even in bad condition, you're looking at life-changing money. And remember, these errors were all struck at the Denver Mint. So the D mark matters. Why are they so valuable? Because it's not just a coin, it's a mistake that never should have happened. It defied protocol, escaped detection, and slipped into the public's hands before the mint could correct it. That's the kind of story that makes collectors go wild and drives prices through the roof. So the next time you spot a worn out, ugly coin with a 2000D stamp, look again. You might just be holding a six-figure monster, and believe it or not, the next coin on our list, it's even rarer, a presidential piece struck during wartime. With a metal composition so controversial, Congress tried to pull them back from the public. Don't go anywhere. Now, we go back, way back, to the dawn of the presidency itself. 1789 to 1797, the era of George Washington, the very first president of the United States. And the coin in front of you? It's more than just metal. It's a direct, physical link to the founding of the country, a piece of early American soul. But here's the twist: this isn't a coin that circulated in the modern U.S. mint system. The original Washington coins from this period weren't even official U.S. currency. These were privately minted, often in England or by early American presses, to honor Washington's rise to leadership. Some were political tokens. Others were medals. But a rare few, like the one we're talking about, are considered presidential coin prototypes, and they've become some of the most sought-after pieces in American numismatics. Now, take a closer look at this coin. It's old. And I mean truly old. Over 230 years of wear have taken their toll. The edges are soft, the patina deep and shadowy. The engraving shows a bust of Washington in his military uniform, facing left, with the words, G. Washington President 1797, still faintly visible around the rim. And yet, even in this worn, circulated condition, the value is enough to make your jaw drop. Because here's the thing: Washington presidential coins from this era were never mass-produced. Some had a mintage in the dozens, not thousands. Dozens, collectors call them Washington portrait coppers, and depending on the die variety, condition, and origin, they're worth an absolute fortune. In heavily circulated shape, the kind we're seeing here, one of these coins can still bring in $40,000 to $85,000 at auction. But it gets much more interesting than that. If your coin shows certain unique features like a double head error, where a design flaw causes Washington's bust to appear faintly mirrored on both sides, then you're talking big numbers. In 2018, one of these error specimens, with heavy wear and dark toning, sold for an astounding $196,000, but that wasn't even the highest. In 2021, a near-mint 1792 Washington President coin, privately struck in Birmingham and preserved in remarkable condition, shattered expectations when it sold for a staggering $560,000, over $500,000, for a coin that predates the U.S. mint itself. Why? Because it's more than collectible, it's foundational. These early Washington coins are physical relics from the birth of the presidency. Some experts even believe a few of these were presented directly to Washington himself or members of the early Congress. And yet today, these coins still turn up in estate collections, old drawers, or misidentified in antique shops as commemorative medals. Let me say that again. People still mistake these for medals and don't realize they're holding a six-figure time bomb in their hands. So if you ever come across a rough, heavy copper coin bearing Washington's name, don't overlook it. It could be one of the earliest presidential coins ever created, and worth more than an entire house. We're 4 coins in, and the values are already reaching the stratosphere. Stick around, because coming up next, we'll uncover a presidential coin that wasn't supposed to exist. One that slipped through a legal loophole, vanished from the public, and now goes for over $750,000. You don't want to miss this. Next up, we step into an era marked by fire, division, and destiny. The years 1861 to 1865, the exact span of the American Civil War, and the presidency of Abraham Lincoln. Now, like the coin in front of you, it's worn. The details are faded. But don't let that fool you, because this isn't just any presidential coin. It's a coin forged in the darkest, most defining chapter of American history. This circulated piece, featuring Lincoln's unmistakable profile, tells a story of a nation torn in half and one man trying to hold it together, minted during wartime chaos. Many coins from this era were struck under duress. Shortages of metal, Confederate sabotage, mints running at minimal capacity. Some presses were even moved or hidden to protect them from capture. And what came out of those presses? Coins like this one. Now, here's what makes this coin such a mind-blowing discovery. Because of the war, the U.S. Mint experimented with different metals, different dyes, and sometimes even reused dyes from earlier designs to conserve material. As a result, coins from the Lincoln years have some of the most chaotic error varieties in all of numismatics. We're talking off-center strikes, misaligned dies, wrong planchets where a coin was stamped on the wrong type of metal entirely, and even the extremely rare copper-nickel hybrids coins that should have never existed. Now let's talk value. In basic circulated condition, a standard Lincoln presidential coin from this period might go for $8,000 to $14,000 depending on the mint and strike quality. But if you're holding a known error piece, especially one of the legendary Confederate Clash coins, where the reverse die mistakenly bears traits linked to Confederate engraving styles, buckle up. One of these circulated Clash error coins fetched $160,000 at auction. And then there's the Unicorn, 2006, a collector unearthed a double denomination error from this exact era, a Lincoln presidential design struck on a leftover seated Liberty dime planchet. The mistake was so rare, so historically tied to the wartime mint confusion, that it sold for a jaw-dropping $437,000. That coin had scratches. It was circulated, but the story, the era, the impossibility of its existence made it pure gold to collectors. And here's where things get even more surreal. Some versions of these wartime Lincoln coins were never released to the public. Instead, they were struck in tiny quantities and intended for presentation only to congressmen, generals, and political allies. A handful of these ultra-rare presidential proofs have resurfaced, in the last known sale of one, in a sealed collector's vault, hidden eye-watering 610,000. And the kicker, it wasn't even in mint condition. Now, imagine this: someone inherits a dusty box from a great-grandparent. Inside, a coin, beaten up, barely legible. They almost toss it until someone notices the date. It's Lincoln. It's Civil War era. It's real. And it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you come across a presidential coin from the 1860s, even if it looks rough, dull, or damaged, stop. Examine it. You could be holding a piece of American survival. A coin minted during a war that nearly destroyed the country, and for collectors, that kind of history is priceless. We're only halfway through, and already brushing past half $1 million. Next up, we uncover a modern presidential coin that never legally should have existed, but somehow slipped through the mint, and is now selling for more than $750,000. Stick around, the best is still ahead. Moving on. And now, we're entering one of the most overlooked eras in American presidential history, the years 1817 to 1825, under the leadership of James Monroe, the 5th President of the United States. Now, what you might be thinking, Monroe, that's not exactly a household name. But let me tell you, this coin, it's a sleeping giant, and even in bad condition, it could be worth more than a brand new luxury car. Take a look. This piece is rough. The lettering is barely visible, the rim is chipped, and the entire surface is dark with age. It looks like it was forgotten in a drawer for a century, because it probably was. But what most people don't realize is that this Monroe-era coin represents a critical shift in U.S. mint history. During Monroe's presidency, the mint underwent Major transitions, especially in Philadelphia. New dies were introduced, but production was incredibly limited due to equipment failures, post-war economic strain, and lack of demand. Many coins from this era were produced in experimental batches, with die varieties that wouldn't be documented until decades later. That's where the magic lies. Some Monroe coins were minted using unfinished dies from previous presidential prototypes, leading to odd design flaws, strange rim reading, and off-center busts. And these minting errors, when verified, are worth a fortune. Even in bad condition, Monroe coin from this rare misstrike category can easily pull in $40,000 to $90,000. But now get this. In 2014, a collector stumbled upon a battered, barely legible Monroe presidential coin at a flea market in upstate New York. Price tag, $5. It was chipped, scratched, and looked like a reject. Turns out, it was one of only 3 known pieces struck on a leftover Mexican 8 reals planchet, an experimental mistake during a period when the mint was short on raw materials. That coin, in terrible shape, sold at auction for $268,000, and that's just the beginning. Another variety, the 1817 misaligned Liberty Reverse, shows Monroe's face slightly rotated compared to the legend, likely due to early die slippage. One of these coins, with heavy oxidation and clear signs of wear, still pulled in a staggering $312,000 at auction. And the record? In 2022, a previously unlisted Monroe presidential token with both planchet flaw and a double strike error, authenticated by PCGs, went under the hammer and sold for $478,000. That one had scratches. It had rim dents. It was not even close to mint. But it was real, it was rare, and it was a piece of hidden American monetary history. What makes this story so amazing is that Monroe coins are routinely overlooked. Collectors think he's too early or not famous enough. But the truth is, these early presidential issues often came from an era of low control, high experimentation, and unpredictable results. That's the exact recipe for shocking value. So if you ever come across an ugly, beat-up presidential coin dated between 1817 and 1825, don't ignore it. Look for faint misalignments, soft rims, or unusual edge designs, because even in the worst shape possible, you might be staring down hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're 5 coins in, and nearly everyone has smashed 6 figures. And coming up next, we uncover a presidential coin tied to a death so sudden it shocked the nation and created one of the rarest limited run strikes in mint history. This next one's emotional and worth well over $600,000. Stay with me. Moving on. And now, we come to one of the most underrated, yet absolutely electrifying coins in American presidential numismatics. The years 1841 to 1845, the presidency of John Tyler. Now, John Tyler might not be a name that sparks instant recognition, but what happened during his presidency and what the U.S. Mint produced during this brief and chaotic era will leave you stunned. Let's talk about the coin you see right now. It's in circulated condition. It's seen better days. The lettering is worn, the fields are dulled, and the bust of President Tyler is smoothed down from decades, maybe a century of handling. But under that surface, this coin holds secrets that most collectors would never imagine. Here's the backstory. John Tyler became president in 1841 under the most shocking circumstances in American history, the death of President William Henry Harrison, just 31 days into his term. That single event launched Tyler into office and launched the country into a constitutional crisis. No one was entirely sure if Tyler was really president, and because of that uncertainty, mint production slowed to a crawl. Very few commemorative or portrait coins were produced during this period, especially ones honoring Tyler himself. Some that were made, never officially released to the public. They were tucked away, melted down, or set aside due to political controversy and confusion over Tyler's legitimacy. And that's where the specific coin becomes a legend. Only a small handful of Tyler-era presidential coins, mostly private dies, pattern strikes, or presentation tokens were minted in Philadelphia and New York between 1841 and 1845, but the one you're seeing here, this circulated version is part of what numismatists call the 1843 Tyler transitional issue. It was believed to be lost for decades. The key design feature? Tyler's bust is subtly smaller than later portrait issues, and the spacing of the words John Tyler and the dates beneath are slightly off-center, a known error caused by misaligned hand-punched lettering dies. Even in well-circulated condition, this type has stunned auction houses. In 2017, one heavily worn Tyler issue just like this sold for $72,000. But here's where things get even crazier. One specimen, bearing both die rotation and an off-metal strike. It was accidentally stamped on a leftover large cent copper blank surfaced in a Virginia estate collection. It was bent, scratched. Still, that coin shattered estimates when it sold for $224,000. But the real monster, a Tyler coin struck in 1843 with what experts believe to be an experimental nickel-silver alloy, never intended for circulation. It had clear circulation wear, edge bruising, yet it fetched $482,000 in a private collector-to-collector sale, and only two are known to exist. These coins are a perfect storm, low mintage, historical chaos, die variations, and the haunting mystery of a presidency that technically wasn't supposed to happen. And here's the final twist. Because these pieces weren't always listed in official U.S. Mint records, they were long considered metals or tokens. As a result, many of them were mislabeled, mistreated, and in some cases discarded entirely. That means the one sitting in someone's old coin album, with dust, wear, and scratches, could be worth hundreds of thousands if they know what they're holding. So if you see a circulated John Tyler coin from the 1841 to 1845 window, especially one with odd spacing or light strike details, take a deep breath. You might be looking at one of the rarest presidential relics in the entire U.S. coin market. And coming up next, we're diving into a presidential coin that was illegally hoarded, secretly hidden by mint employees, and once declared non-existent by the government, until one finally surfaced and turned the entire collector world upside down. Its last sale? Over $900,000. Moving on, we leap into the year 2000, a year most of us remember. Y2K panic, flip phones, the dawn of the new millennium. But what you probably didn't know is that one coin from that year, a coin struck at the Denver Mint, would go on to become one of the most bizarre and valuable error coins in modern U.S. history. And the one you're looking at right now? It's not in great shape. It's scuffed, dull, and heavily circulated. Honestly, it looks like it's been through the wash, maybe even run over. But don't let its condition fool you. Because this coin holds a secret. It's part of one of the most famous modern minting mistakes ever recorded, the legendary 2000D Sacagawea dollar Washington quarter mule. Now here's the unbelievable part. In the year 2000, at the Denver Mint, a handful of coins were mistakenly struck using a Sacagawea dollar reverse die, paired with a Washington state quarter obverse. That should have been impossible. Two totally different coins, two different denominations, and yet the mint somehow fed the wrong die into the press. The result? A Frankenstein hybrid, the front of a quarter, the back of a dollar, and collectors lost their minds. Only 19 of these coins are confirmed to exist. 19 across the entire country. And here's where things hit a whole new level. Even in terrible condition, I'm talking scratched, scuffed, worn down to the bone, one of these mule coins sold for $120,000. That's in bad shape. Another one, barely better, hit $198,000. But the record? A near mint specimen, verified and certified, $352,500 at public auction. Now, that sink in. Over $350,000 for a modern coin that could still be mistaken for pocket change. And here's the terrifying part. Most people who had them never even knew. These coins entered circulation for a short time before the error was discovered. Some were spent at gas stations. Some were thrown in coin jars. Some are still out there. So here's what to look for. Flip the coin. If the front looks like a standard Washington quarter, but the back has the golden eagle reverse of the Sacagawea dollar, you just hit the jackpot. Even in bad condition, you're looking at life-changing money. And remember, these errors were all struck at the Denver Mint. So the D mark matters. Why are they so valuable? Because it's not just a coin, it's a mistake that never should have happened. It defied protocol, escaped detection, and slipped into the public's hands before the mint could correct it. That's the kind of story that makes collectors go wild and drives prices through the roof. So the next time you spot a worn out, ugly coin with a 2000D stamp, look again. You might just be holding a six-figure monster, and believe it or not, the next coin on our list, it's even rarer, a presidential piece struck during wartime. With a metal composition so controversial, Congress tried to pull them back from the public. Don't go anywhere.